All right. Hey, Jabbers. Today we're chatting with Dr. Veronica about how to regulate our nervous system to be better business owners and, well, just a better human. Dr. Veronica is a first generation doctor and entrepreneur in her family. She is a nervous system based coach and chiropractor, seeing practice members locally as a licensed chiropractor and coaching entrepreneurial women online as a certified holistic mindset coach and business mentor. She is driven by her passion of helping people live out their God given calling in a way that makes them feel fulfilled, intentional, and peaceful. As a mom of two, outside of her career, she enjoys spending time with her family outside if at all possible, baking sourdough, and traveling as often and as far as she can. Welcome, Dr. Veronica. We're so excited to have you with us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah.
Oh, this is
Gabby
going to
and I
be
also, well, Gabby probably does a little bit more than me, but we also dabble in baking sourdough. I took that up this year after I saw that my mom and sister-in-law were doing it. I've had some
I love
good
it.
good attempts and some failed attempts.
Well, I have been trying to start my own starter for like the last year and a half. I got one of those Facebook memories that was like, remember when? And I was like, it's been a year. And so I've been using other people's. I'm still trying to start my own. So it's a journey.
For
that's
sure.
hard. My father-in-law tried to do that and basically like you put it on top of the fridge and try to just let bacteria grow in it and it sounds so nasty, but it's delicious.
Right now it's in my oven because my house is too cold to be on top of the fridge. So it's been a
Oh.
trial and error. Yes, but it is really gross. Like it's definitely a science experiment until it turns into this beautiful thing. So
Mhm.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. Well, we'll have to definitely talk offline more about our sourdough experiments. But we're so excited to have you, Dr. Veronica. We'd love to know a little bit more. I mean, we got a great bio here from you, but tell us a little bit about your journey in becoming a chiropractor and specifically a nervous system coach. Like, walk us through that.
yeah. So I love this question because I feel like an old person. I'm like, it started back when. But really, truly, my journey started when I was just graduating high school. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life for a long time. And I went through, I think, every single healthcare profession you could think of. Like I looked into nursing, medical school, physical therapy, dietetics, anything in the health realm. I didn't have really anyone in my life that I was like looking after. I was just kind of like, I want to be in healthcare of some sort. And so I landed on exercise science. And I actually thought I was going to be a physical therapist until my last semester of undergrad. I interned with a physical therapist and it was not my favorite experience. I was like, this is not it. So I
Thank God
graduated
you did
undergrad.
that.
Right? Yes, yes. Yes, because that would have been a very interesting yeah, experience. But I graduated undergrad from square one, had no idea what I wanted to do. I knew I also wanted to be an entrepreneur. I don't know. I just was like, I want my own thing. And that's why healthcare was so hard because it's like there's not a lot of entrepreneurial, experiences there. So I thought I was going to open my own gym. I interned with a wellness coordinator and I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do. A wellness coordinator position had just opened up in my hometown. And so I was like, I applied for it. I was a shoo-in. They didn't even call me back for the job. And so I was like, what do I do now? So I started working for a chiropractor for 2 years before she finally convinced me that it was everything that I ever wanted and dreamed of in the holistic healthcare, while also entrepreneurship world. And so I was like, yeah, but I probably won't even get into chiropractic school. It turns out it's super easy to get into chiropractic school. It's really hard to stay in chiropractic school. So that was my journey into chiropractic, and it is truly, I am biased, but the best profession in the world. And then halfway through chiropractic school, to kind of get the coaching aspect of it all, I actually during my chiropractic schooling, I had done a lot of network marketing, and I did just like I'd always kind of done jobs where I was kind of like an independent contractor and different things. And so I'd been kind of coaching women in network marketing world to try and help them build their businesses and all that kind of stuff. Well, I had my daughter halfway through chiropractic school, which is a story in and of itself because I didn't think I wanted kids. Ended up I did want kids. And had my daughter, and based between the experience that I had becoming like learning how to become a chiropractor, learning about the nervous system, learning how to like regulate your own self. A really big kind of theme we had in chiropractic school is you can only take someone as far as you're willing to go in your own healing journey. And so I went on a deep dive in chiropractic school, had my daughter, found out that the work that I'd been doing made me like thrive in motherhood and school, and my business was growing and all this stuff was happening, and people were like, how are you doing that? And I was like, I don't know, it just like it's easy. And so I questioned that. I'm like, how am I doing this? How am I feeling so fulfilled in this season that should be feeling so like hard? And I kind of did research behind like habits and neurosystem pathways, and I was already kind of on that pathway anyway for chiropractic school, but then I was like, how can I do this as a coach? Because people were asking questions. And so I got my certification through Mind Body Green, learned how to be a coach, and then kind of tied that with my experience as a chiropractor in the nervous system health, and then tied that also with my business experience with network marketing and the different like independent contracting jobs I had. And that was a long story short, but that's how I'm here today.
That's amazing. And okay, now as someone who knows nothing about the medical world, to me, as an outsider, I think chiropractor or chiropractic health, how did you get so deep into, like you were saying, you develop, like there was a sense of you were doing things differently and you were healing yourself or going deep into that. To me, it's like you're cracking bones. How was there a deeper level there?
Yeah, good question. So I actually had a biomechanics teacher in undergrad tell me that chiropractors are like evil people. And I actually ruled chiropractic out because of that. And so it started when I worked for that chiropractor, and I noticed that everyone would come in, feeling like okay, but then would leave like a different person. They had such a great experience with her. And just the environment of patients wanted to be there and they liked following through with their care and that kind of thing. So I kind of started to be like, there's something here that maybe we don't really know about. Then when I went through chiropractic school, there's a lot. I mean, I truly believe there's good seeds and there's, people that maybe don't love what they do, no matter what profession you're in. And so I just kind of really got involved with this group that was really into holistic healing and tonal work and like seeing the body as a whole. Even in chiropractic, we have different variations of what that looks like for people. And I just happened to land on this like even smaller group within the group, that's all about like your mindset, your health, your physical health, your mental health, like all of that. So I just got wrapped up in the right group, honestly. And not only were they one of the best adjusters on campus, they were super involved in their mental health and their physical health, and they were the ones working out at 5 a.m. and they were the ones eating right and getting rid of toxins. And so I just found the right group, thank God. And got grouped with them and realized like this is what I've been wanting to do my whole life, is see people as this whole like whole thing. Knowing that chiropractic care is an excellent like I guess complement to that routine, but that's not where it stops, right? It's this whole journey that you get to go on.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like come from the land of chiropractors. My hometown probably has like 8 or 10 practices, and it's like a town of like 10,000 people. It's crazy. But I don't know if chiropractic started, but like in Iowa, but there's like a ton of schools there for people. So I've had a lot of like classmates and stuff go to chiropractic school. But I think that's really cool because I've gone to a chiropractor for a good majority of my life, but I do love like how you're talking about kind of like the whole system and like whole health, because if you're just going to a chiropractor just to get adjusted and leaving, but you're not taking care of yourself in every other way, it like really matters. So I love that you kind of fell into that group of people.
Yeah, thank you. Me too. Because I really think, I mean, it could also be a band-aid solution, right? Like I as much as we as a chiropractor, you're not necessarily focused on medicine, right? You're focused on other things. But if you're not taking care of the whole picture, you're still kind of doing, it's like if you're just coming to see me
Mhm.
to stop being in pain, you could also probably take a Tylenol. Like, I hate to say that, and I can't say that, but like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a whole process of like how you got into pain and how we're gonna get you out of pain together. Like, I can't just do it for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was just going to say, because Kari and I have talked about this before, and I'm in my deep healing journey in a sense. Like we were joking before we recorded, the ladies saw me drink out of this, which if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see, but it kind of looks like a beer, but it's actually colostrum. So it's like complete opposite. But to your point, Dr. Veronica, I think there is a root cause that is deeper sometimes than just an ache. Like there's something that's mental, emotional, or even simple as nutrition deficiency or something like that. And so I think it is important, and doctors are becoming a lot better at this. But what I've understood from other podcasts that I listen to is the traditional training in medicine does not focus a very long time on nutrition, for example. And the doctors want to cut people open. I don't blame them. That's the fun part for them, right? Or they want to like heal in that way. But I do think doctors are getting better and finding the right one that is kind of what you're saying, taking the whole body, mind, spirit, all that together is more and more important for the healing journey now.
Yeah. And I think it's important. I mean, even as a chiropractor myself, I actually was just talking to my mom about this the other day. I'm like, if you find any provider out there that tells you that they can help you with everything, run as far as you can. Like, I don't care if you're a chiropractor, if you're a medical doctor, whatever you are in the healthcare field, like, there's no way to fully support someone 100%. Like, there has to be collaboration and, this referral network of like-minded people who can help you get you on the path that you need to go.
Yeah, for sure. So tell us and our listeners a little bit more about the nervous system. What does it actually do within our bodies? What does it control? And like what kind of effect does it have on us if we're not managing it properly?
Yeah, good question. You'll probably, if you hang around me long enough, you're going to hear this analogy because it's like the most simplest one. If you were to just let's say you're in the kitchen cooking and you put your hand on the hot stove. Your nervous system is built to protect you, right? So you put your hand on the hot stove. I even saw you like wince. Like we all know what that experience would be like. You're going to move. First of all, your nervous system is responsible for being like, okay, hey, move your hand. That hurt. Don't do that again. And then it's going to see the stove in a new light from now on, right? It's not going to see it as a safe space, maybe. It's going to see it as like, this is what I need to now protect you from. You can use it, but just make sure that you like are using the right equipment so you don't burn your hand again. That's what the nervous system is built and primed and prepped for. And so the great thing about this is it keeps you alive. It tells you, hey, this hurts or this is not, doesn't feel good. And then it tells you, don't do it again. The thing that we kind of sometimes get trapped in is that the nervous system itself can't tell the difference between something like a hot stove or a predator chasing you compared to a thought process that you're having that feels just as threatening, right? So let's say you have a work deadline, or let's say you have a bad experience with a client, or your toddler's melting down. It is going to use the same mechanism that it used to keep you safe from a bear chasing you, right? As it does to protect you from the other things in life. And so as both a coach and a chiropractor, we say that there's a saying within chiropractic called the 3 T's: trauma, thoughts, and toxins. As a chiropractor, I work with your trauma, right? Your physical stuff that happens in your body. As a coach, I work with your thoughts and why you may be perceiving something as a threat when it might not be. And so that's kind of what the nervous system does for you. Like it's a great thing because it keeps you safe. However, if you're not controlling, or I guess the default mechanism of your nervous system is that survival piece. If you don't do something about it, if you don't take control of it, pretty much everything is going to feel like a threat, right? And then you're going to be sent into this chronic, stressful environment versus taking captive your thoughts and being like, maybe this isn't as dangerous as my nervous system is perceiving it to be. And so what can I do about this? And what do I need to do next?
Sorry.
Oh,
I was just gonna say, I haven't fully read the book, but it kind of reminded me of, I think it's called The Body Keeps Score. And it's so fascinating because it like talks about how trauma that we experience, whether how great or small it is, like our body stores that. And so sometimes that's why we have back issues or back pain, or like our sciatic hurts or whatever. And it's just like really fascinating how much our thoughts can influence our physical ailments.
Yeah, it's so true. And that book is amazing. I recommend everyone should read it. It's
I need to
like,
go back and
it's
finish it.
yeah. Honestly, say I haven't gotten to the end. I like the middle part, but it's so good because it's so true. And I think it's really cool because the world of psychology has really understood it really, really well and has been able to kind of be that spearhead of letting people know what it's like. But it's like then chiropractors come in. Like that is totally what I do as a chiropractor, right? And then as a coach, it's like helping you. I always say coaching is forward focused, therapy is past focused. So if you're stuck in the past, you need a therapist. If you want to move forward, you need a coach. And so just it's so true that you need all of these tools in order to keep moving forward. Because I mean, not that the body's trying to work against you, it's just trying to protect you. You get to decide to tell it what it needs to do next.
So it's like our fight or flight mode, essentially.
Essentially. Yes.
Which
I love that line that you just said about if you're stuck in the past, you need a therapist. If you need to move forward, you need a coach. And I'm like, "Oh, maybe I need a coach."
that,
I love
yeah,
it.
that's a great tip. I think I was thinking about that too. I always tend to go for a coach more than a therapist, but I'm sure you need to revisit some stuff in the past before you're able to move forward anyway. So, okay, let's talk about cortisol because this is an important part of the nervous system. And it is also, to me, a very trendy, and to both of us, really, a very trendy word these days. Is it not? Like everyone's talking about cortisol, everyone's talking about how to lower the levels. But like what does that even mean? Do we need it? Do we not want cortisol at all? How much can we lower? How do we lower? Like tell us all the things.
Yes, I saw that question and I was like so excited because I was like, yes, let's go. So one thing I didn't mention about the nervous system that I do want to briefly mention, you mentioned it though, Kari, was the fight and flight response. So we know those two as like the main two categories, fight, flight. There's also fawn and freeze. So I go over that is a really big part that I go over with my coaching clients, is which mode are you mostly in? And then you have the, sorry, one second.
Oh, all good. You know what I didn't think of doing, Carrie? I can just do lap, press the lap button on the
Oh,
stopwatch every
yeah.
time we mess up and I get the exact times.
Oh, that's
Oh,
perfect.
well, I guess it only
Technology.
calculates. Yeah, it calculates. Anyway, it's all good. We're good.
Cool.
What was this? Oh, so you've got those four modes, and then you've got rest and digest, which is like the restorative process of your nervous system. So you've got those two pathways. So I just want to keep that in mind as we go forward, because when it comes to cortisol, cortisol is known as the stress hormone, but if you didn't have cortisol, it would be super bad, right? Like if you, it's actually, it like helps with your metabolism, it helps you with your blood pressure regulation, it helps with a lot of things in your body that you need. And that's the same kind of thought process with the nervous system in general. A lot of people say like, I don't, I get the idea behind like healing your nervous system, but I don't think your nervous system actually needs healed. It just needs to be balanced because we don't want to stop one of those processes. We just want them to start working to where it's like a dance versus like one of them is in overdrive and one of them is on underdrive. And so when it comes to cortisol, the thing about I'm going to give a chiropractic answer here because cortisol is a stress hormone that is produced by your adrenal glands, but there's another hormone before that that comes from your brain that tells it whether to be produced or not. So there's this like limiting step of like the brain is processing, do I need this cortisol in my body right now? It's going to say yes or no. If it says yes, then it's going to be like, okay, adrenal glands do your thing. We need some cortisol. That is nervous system work, right? Like if your nervous system is perceiving a threat, it's going to tell the brain, hey, we need cortisol, and it's going to make cortisol. And so to me, your nervous system is the root cause of maybe higher cortisol because it's telling you, hey, we're in danger. You need to keep making more of it. Now, how you kind of go about I guess balancing that out again depends on how long you've been in that state for, right? So if you've been and how your body's adapted to it, right? Because you could be in it for years, but if your body's really good at, getting rid of it or maintaining it or balancing it out, you probably don't need as much help as someone who's now looking into like these diagnoses of hypercortisol in their bodies. It's kind of like tearing things apart.
Wait, I'm sorry. You said years? Like someone can be in a high state of cortisol for years? What is an example of that? Like someone with a high stress job? Does it never come down at like so much even at night? They're just constantly thinking about it? Oh my God, my cortisol is peaking just thinking about it.
Yes, think about the I'm picturing this, like, you know, the big CEO guy who's like constantly like available for his clients all the time, who's constantly on call, who's constantly got deadlines, who the body is super, again, this is a nervous system thing, right? It's efficient. So if you are someone who is in a high stressful environment, it doesn't want to go through these big crashes of like, okay, we really need a lot of cortisol to get through this, and then we're gonna come all the way down. It might do that for a little bit when it first gets started because it doesn't know, right? It's like, what are we dealing with here? If you have stress all the time, I mean, even thinking like the anxious mom who has a hard time sleeping or losing weight, or you know, like all these symptoms that she's having, irritation, like I said, anxiety, the body, instead of trying to go through this really big push of getting a ton of cortisol out and then restoring it, coming all the way back down to balance, that's a really big dip. That's going to take a lot of energy. Versus if I'm in a high stressful event, the body's like, you know what, let's just leave your foot on the gas, right? Because I don't want to have to keep adding energy to bring you back down if you're not going to even let me do that. So I'm just going to keep you here, and it might still peak at the top here, but your baseline has gotten much higher because the body is trying to compensate for how often you're recruiting it and how often you're telling your body you need more of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's
Is
terrifying.
there a way for you to be like, oh, maybe I am in a high level of like high levels of cortisol, or is that only really noticeable once you get a testing done? Right? Because if you're living in stress for years, you just think it's like your normal way of life, right?
Yeah. I would say if you're living in high stress, you could probably just assume that you probably have higher ends of cortisol. Um, but if you're wanting like a specific, I guess, protocol, it's never a bad idea to get tested and to see like what support you do need. Because I mean, like I said, it could be support for your adrenal glands. It could be, you might have been doing this for so long, you might be in the realm of needing medication to at least get you back down to a better baseline. So I think it's so hard to answer questions like that because it's like, I don't know, I need a background, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you can rest assured that if you are taking care of your nervous system, if you're getting adjusted, if you're doing the things that you need to do to um, come back into your capacity and set boundaries and all of these things, you're going to reduce it, right? It's just a matter of how much you need to reduce it to get back to a stable and healthy balance. Depends on so many factors.
Yeah.
And that's literally what Kari and I talk about all the time. Like, those are our problems: client boundaries, being too responsive, worrying. Like, in our line of work, we're people pleasers and helpers and givers, and we're constantly making sure everyone else is happy, to our detriment. But to Kari's point, I think we live in that state all the time and we think, I feel good, I feel normal. Like, this is what, but we're probably pretty high on the cortisol level chart, and that is terrifying.
Maybe most entrepreneurs are because it's like, I don't know. Yeah, it depends like where you are in business, but I feel like there's can be a lot more worries with, you know, running a business and
Mhm.
like you said, setting those boundaries.
Yeah, and I would say, I mean, you have to remember that the body's also really resilient, right? Like it can go through a lot before you start. It's like when you start, I mean, you've got these entrepreneurs who have these stories of like autoimmune conditions that came up or ended up in the hospital for, panic attacks and anxiety. So it's, I think at that point, it's like, okay, we do need to get more hands on deck. But for a majority of the women entrepreneurs, and I say women because I feel like we just have a different like mental load than than the other half. But just to say that, we're still in this spot of being able to take back our stress and being able to increase our capacity, not necessarily by stopping our work. I had a client be like, should I just quit my job then? And it's like, no, because actually, even if you were to quit your job, if your capacity stays the same, I like to think of it, I use like the boiling water analogy, right? Like if you're boiling water You can take it off the stove and it'll immediately stop boiling. If you put it back on the stove, it's going to like boil over again until the water is cooled down enough to be able to handle the environment. So it's not so much that you need to change your environment to make your stress levels better. You actually need to change your internal environment to be able to withstand more and have more adaptability and resiliency and ability to find rest when you can versus staying in that like high stress, anxiety, like go, go, go type of mentality.
Yeah, because even if you change your environment, you are still going to be the same person bringing all of that with you to the next environment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a quickie question before, because there's so much more to dive into, but this is something I've asked another guest on our podcast because I think I'm just genuinely curious what your thoughts are. Coffee before breakfast, yay or nay? How does it affect your cortisol levels?
I say nay for sure. Because it's like it's a stimulant, right? And so if you are there, I know I talked a lot about nervous system. There's other things in your environment that can stimulate it, right? And that's actually the toxins part of the, not necessarily saying it is a toxin, but I mean it can be, right? If you have too much caffeine, it definitely is a toxin. And so adding things into your body before you're able to metabolize it, it just doesn't, it's not going to look good for your body in general. So I mean, I don't dive a ton into nutrition, so I couldn't tell you exactly, but I do say have some protein, have some carbs before you, like, with your coffee. Still have your coffee if you but just eat something with it and it'll just make it so that your body isn't metabolizing that caffeine so quickly and affecting other, I mean, I know a caffeine affects so many different areas of your body anyway. You just want to give your body a good fighting chance. And if you're already someone who's in that higher stress environment, now you're pushing your adrenals even further, and it's like, just please eat some food while you eat your coffee.
Yeah. So I'm really curious because I feel like in America, we're like very go, 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 hustle mentality, where maybe in other countries it's a little more relaxed, maybe Europe or Mexico, where people sort of embrace shorter work days or, vacation holidays, they call them, where they're like, I'm gone for 6 weeks. And I feel like here in America, we're like, I'm having open heart surgery, contact me, an hour afterwards. And I'm so curious how that affects, again, like our nervous system and just how we work in America, and how that really like affects our day-to-day lives versus if we embrace this other lifestyle, how much that would maybe help our nervous system, lower our cortisol levels, etc. So I'm curious your take on that.
Yeah. So I have actually met a lot of really cool people from all over the world just through my chiropractic schooling, and I've been on mission trips, and I have found that, and I mean, I can only speak so much, right, to what their lifestyle is like. We are, as Americans, stuck in overdrive all of the time, right? Like, the moms, our kids, even, like, we put them in tons of activities where we want to meet, I think we're trying to give them this like best experience ever, that it's just like we fill up their calendars just like we fill up our calendars. So it definitely starts at a young age here, and it stays that way for like a long time. And like, again, our body has learned how to be efficient and keep us moving forward, while doing the least amount of damage as possible. So we do have that in America. I have found that you still need some of that stress though, right? And so there's like what I call a tone. If I were to see you in the chiropractic office, usually people who have the higher stress are like rigid, right? It's like their muscles are really tight, they're stiff, and things like that. And so, but if I were to meet someone who's on the opposite spectrum, who maybe doesn't have any stress at all in their life and is just kind of like never stressed, they have more of like this laxity of like almost like too calm, right? It's just like they don't respond very fast. They're like, if I were to adjust them, literally, if some of their muscles feel like they just melt, right?
Those people exist.
They
Whether
do, yes. Probably not here. I don't think she was from here, but they do exist. And I think that's why it's so important to, again, have that balance. We need some good stress in our life. We need to be able to adapt and grow. And so I just think that we can learn from each other for sure. Of like, okay, can we create this structure without so much rigidity? Because if I were to see you in the office and you're someone who has like no stress, I'm gonna actually work on almost like giving your body some stress to adapt to. Because I mean, you have probably been through stress, you're just not really like interpreting it or like doing anything with it. And so I would do more of a higher amount of adjustments with that person versus someone who's really stretched. Sometimes we do like one big adjustment and then like the rest is just like unwinding, right? So there is this balance of like you do need some stress, but we as Americans often live in that too much stress side of things.
Yeah, just the constant hustle. And I mean, I feel like right that again that feels important for like entrepreneurs, like our listeners as well, of just to like find that balance of like, because we feel, you know, solely responsible for how our business is going, how much money we're making. And I feel like kind of finding that balance, because I do think there is like a lot of talk now about slowing down and living a slower lifestyle, and people are trying to incorporate it, but it's hard to do sometimes.
Well,
It
and
is hard.
it's a culture shock for us, right? Like we grew up in this. This is what we know. And I will say sometimes, like to your point, Dr. Veronica, you said there is such thing as good stress. And for me personally, that is a level of motivation almost. Like when I feel tingly with like a certain level of excitement. I'm like, ooh, yes. And then I start doing. And I don't feel guilty. I don't feel bad until I've reached a level where then I'm like, whoa, this is too much. I've taken on too much. People are too demanding, whatever that is. So at the end of the day, for me, it's boundaries. It's always one of my biggest stressors. But let's talk specifics here for our listeners, which they're all small business owners, entrepreneurs, and maybe specifically women. We know women have, like you were saying, they're juggling a lot. There's a lot of responsibilities, and they have nervous systems here in America that are on high alert, high cortisol levels. What can we do? What are some day-to-day things that women can do to like slowly start lowering? If they're just at home listening to this today, what are maybe a few things that they can take action on today?
Yeah. Great question. I actually created a 4-step method for this. And you can apply it to so many. I mean, the reason that I have like group coaching and one-on-one coaching is because we're literally taking this method and applying it over and over again in different areas of your life. It doesn't always feel like that, but that's literally what we're doing over and over. And it is acknowledge, break down, build up, and celebrate. I found, and this is when I remember when at the beginning when I talked about this like deep dive that I went on, like how when things were going really well in my life, I was doing these 4 things really well, and when they weren't, I wasn't doing, especially number 4, but I wasn't doing all of them. And so this is kind of what I walk myself through and what you can do too, depending on what it is you're kind of struggling with. So let's say it's like emotional health. If you're just someone who's like really, that's where it started for me, because I used to be considered a very angry person all the time. I called it passion, but at the time I realized it was like toxicity. I did this with emotional health, and this is how I kind of overcame it. So acknowledge, what is it that I'm feeling? What triggered me into feeling this, like just getting curious. And I find that when we do this really well as women, and we acknowledge, but we judge, right? We're like, oh, here I'm doing this again, or I'm back in this spot. So we acknowledge with curiosity. We want to know, like, what is this emotion telling me? What is this reaction telling me? What is this thing telling me? What is my body telling me? And why? Just curious. And then we break down, we break down. So it's like, now that we know, we're just aware that the problem exists, what is it that it's trying to do for me, right? So at the time, my anger was trying to meet some sort of need. Either I felt hurt or misunderstood, and my anger was a way of meeting that need, right? And so how can I, like, what is the need that I need to meet here? And then build up, how can I meet this need even better? So right now it's just anger, right? That's what's meeting the need. I want a new way to meet this need. Maybe that's better communication. That's more connection. Maybe that's more connection with myself even. And then we celebrate. And this is the 4th step. It sounds simple, but the 4th step that we almost always forget to do is celebrate. And so from a, I guess, mindset standpoint, it's like being proud and honoring the work that you did for those 3 steps up until that point. And from a nervous system perspective, we have these, again, like I told you, the brain is constantly being like, do I want to do this again? Do I like doing that? Does it feel good? If we're not celebrating, we are oftentimes judging, And if we're judging, the nervous system is like, I hate this feeling. Why would I keep doing it? Right? Like, I don't want to do this again. We have to celebrate to solidify that new neurological pathway, because that's when your dopamine is going to kick in. That's when your feel good hormones are going to kick in. And that's when the brain's going to actually crave more of this journey versus kind of shying away from it because of the judgment we've kind of placed over it. So that's, I mean, to apply that again in real life terms, just acknowledge what you're going through. That step alone is the first step. And then breaking down, building up, celebrating. You have to celebrate, or it's something that you're going to fall out of for sure.
Mm-hmm. And it's easy. I think the acknowledgement part is, I mean, obviously so important, but it's easy to place blame on somebody else. But at the end of the day, we're in control of our emotions and how we can solve problems. And so I think about this sometimes in my field of work as a wedding planner. It's easy for me to blame a vendor, a client, or something for not doing their part. But I'm like, okay, what is it that's making me angry about it? You know, what part of this whole process making me angry? So I'm going to keep that 4-step method in mind next time I go down that path, and I'll just talk myself off the ledge, and then I'll celebrate and all will be well.
Yes, I love that point, because you have to remember, not only is that radical accountability, but it gives you control again, right? Like if it was the client's fault, 100% the client's fault, you have no say, right? Like they're just in control. When you talk about, well, maybe I could have done this, or maybe I could have done that, in a state of curiosity, right? Like we want to beat ourselves up about it, but it's like, okay, well, now I know what to do next time, and now I can move forward learning from this opportunity instead of like, I don't know, having a hard time with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For sure. So, would you say regulating your nervous system takes constant effort? And how do we sort of go about that journey when we feel constant pressure and stress from daily lives?
Yeah. So I I had to really think on this one, and I don't know if I ever came up with the true answer, because I do think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves once it's, and that again goes back to this like judgment that we have of just our healing journeys. It's like, now that I know better, I have to do better all of the time, and I have like all these tools that I have to constantly. And as a nervous system based coach myself, I mean, I find myself being mad and frustrated and overstimulated and over, like it's just it's impossible to go through life without those things, right? Like it's just going to happen. And it's not so much that we want to always avoid it, right? Like we don't want to just live lives of just like, I mean, maybe we do. Peace would be nice all the time. We can't, I don't think it's feasible to be peaceful all of the time, 100% of the time. We just need to have a foundation to come back to before we kind of get reckless, right? Before we start maybe having those disconnections in our relationships, before we disconnect with ourselves, before we find ourselves in this state of like burnout, where it's like we're way too gone to apply these steps. Now we're trying to recover from what we've been doing. It's like I can see in myself when I'm starting to go back toward this path of dysregulation. Here are the tools that I have to do it. And for some people, as a nervous system based coach, I guess the big thing that sets me apart from some of the other people in this industry is I don't give exercises. And I don't believe that there's this one exercise. I mean, I do give exercises, but I don't start there. And two, I don't expect you to maintain it for a long time. I think exercises are great. Like breath work and meditation. And those are all things that are tools that you can pull out anytime. I personally have never gone longer than a few months with the same tool because I didn't need it for much longer than X amount of time. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe in that my 4-step method more than anything, because it's checking in with yourself. It's like, what do I need? And in that build up stage, if you're like, maybe I need a journal, maybe I need to exercise, maybe I need to eat better, like the build up stage allows you to choose what path you need to go to, again, meet that need, find regulation. And so, yeah, just I think it's more important to acknowledge and get curious about what you're going through than it is to continue to try and find the tools to stay out of overstimulation and dysregulation.
Yeah, I love that. It's like really a daily, weekly journey of like figuring out where you're at and what works for you.
Yeah, without the pressure of like it has to look, a certain way.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm sure there's a little bit of like needing to trust your gut on some stuff, like tuning into your body, because that's another big conversation right now is a lot of people have lost touch with just their intuition and gut feeling, whatever you want to call it. And they're living kind of out of body experience, just on the hamster wheel every day. And I'm sure there's part of this that's like, hey, let me take a moment, listen to what these feelings are, what's creating this stress, this anxiety, whatever it is. And then let me take the steps to go through it and take my time. And like you said, no judgment. It's okay if you come out of it and the problem is not completely solved, but you've taken up the curiosity and you've gotten to dig into it a little bit more, would you say?
Yeah, no, for sure. And what you described is what I like to call like your autopilot, right? You just kind of live life just like on cruise control and you're like, I don't even know how I got here. And that is very common. So give yourself
Yeah.
grace for that experience. And when you first start this learning journey, that acknowledge piece is probably going to be, I mean, you're probably going to be really tired at first, or maybe even really irritated or agitated because it's like, you're going from a place of like habits, like habitual routines where it's like you just went on iPad, you weren't thinking about it, to now I'm aware of what I'm saying and what I'm doing and what I'm not doing. It's exhausting. And so maybe in that build up stage, you just need to take more naps, right? Because it's
Mhm.
like your brain is turning on from being off for so long, and living, and almost like your nervous system just took over and you just kind of let it fly, versus like I'm taking back control of my own nervous system and deciding what I believe is safe and what isn't safe, and this is how we're going to move forward from there. And so yeah, just this process of, like I said, you might be tired at first, but it's so worth it because then that will become a new habit, right? You're just
Mm.
kind of shifting those gears.
Yeah. And Carrie and
That's
I have talked about habits recently, so it's perfect.
Yeah. I feel like that's like such a great method to follow because I think especially for myself, it's like, and for a lot of us, right? It's probably easier to stay in the state that we're in versus doing the work to get out of it because even if it is a high level state of stress, we're like, you know what? This is what I know. This is easy and it's like more work, right? So like go to therapy or do something like that and get out of that. Like the work that it takes to get out of that is can be more stressful and overwhelming because it's an unknown, right?
Yeah, and that's why that celebration piece is so important because you really, I mean, even just acknowledging what you did that day, celebrate that because you didn't do that before, right? So it's every little step along the way that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. One more kind of content related question here. But what, like, do you think social media plays like a huge role on our nervous systems? I always think like, yes, oh my God, I'm scrolling and I like my memory is worse now. I mean, it's got to affect us in all sorts of way. Like, what's your take on social media right now?
Yes. I have a social media, like I build my business on social media, so I get it's important. I would never tell you to take it out completely, but boundaries are so important on social media, just between the overstimulation of like all of the content, all of the knowledge you have. Even knowledge can be toxic, right? If we have too much of it. And so it's like being mindful of who you allow on your page, being mindful of how long you're scrolling. I have no notifications on my social media, none, because it's like I don't need my nervous system to be triggered to check something or think about something else or be steered off because of something that isn't that important right now, right? So I think as long as you are, again, kind of going from off of autopilot and mindless scrolling and all this, as long as you're in control of the way that you use social media, it's great. And I think it's how we're talking today, right? And don't let it kind of take over and be more of a stimulant to you than it needs to be.
Yeah. Wise words.
Yeah. Dr. Veronica, this has been so great. How can people connect with you online or work with you if they're in need of, helping to regulate their nervous system?
Yeah, so you can find a lot of my information on my website, veronicaishiltz.com. I am also on Instagram as Dr. Veronica I. Schiltz, and I do have a free masterclass coming up on July 18th. So not sure when this will air, but there will be replays available for you to check out. That's a really good place to start because that's where you're going to get like real time coaching and see what it's like. And then I also offer a group program that I'm launching in September, and then one-to-one coaching that I take. I take about 5 clients every 6 months. And so limited spots, but if you are someone who's like, I need like a really intensive program to get my nervous system in check, that is an option for you too.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I feel like I want to call you Dr. V because we're like friends now. We've had this great intimate conversation. But no, this has been such a fascinating and important topic, I think, for everybody, especially women entrepreneurs, but entrepreneurs, small businesses in general, and giving us great actionable advice on how to regulate our systems and nervous systems and enjoy their life without stress. So we're so grateful to have had you on. And we are going to see you at another episode, Kari. Dr. V, I hope you tune into another episode. But Kari, I'll see you in another episode.
Yes, I love it. Thank you guys for having me. This was awesome. And yes, we are friends now. You're stuck with me.